Becoming the best at anything is not about a set of tactics. It's not a list of hacks or secret formulas hidden in some online course. It starts deeper than that. It begins with one fundamental question that most people overlook: why? We live in a world where people obsess over results. They want to be faster, better, smarter. They want to win. And yet, most of them fall short not because they lack skill, but because they never took the time to understand the purpose behind what they're doing. You can have all the tools in the world, but if you don't know why you're holding them, they're just weight in your hands. Purpose is the engine. It is what sustains us long after motivation fades. And motivation will fade. Let's not pretend otherwise. There will be days when you're tired, when the work feels invisible, when nothing is going your way. On those days, skill won't save you. Passion won't either, only purpose will. Think about the people who are truly great at what they do. The ones we admire. The ones whose names we remember, not just for their achievements, but for how they made us feel. What's the common thread? It's not talent, it's clarity. They know why they do what they do. They don't chase goals just to prove something. They build legacies because they're rooted in something far more meaningful than recognition. Purpose gives your actions direction. Without it, you're just reacting to life instead of creating it. You jump from one thing to another, looking for that one big break, hoping the next opportunity will finally feel like the one. But when you're grounded in your why, every action is intentional, even the small, unglamorous ones, especially those. The truth is, becoming the best isn't about being better than others. It's about becoming the clearest version of yourself. It's about aligning what you do with what you believe. And when you achieve that alignment, something powerful happens. You become consistent. And consistency over time beats brilliance. But here's the challenge. Most people skip the work of purpose. They jump straight to the how. How do I get better? How do I win? How do I get noticed? They treat purpose like an accessory instead of the foundation. But when you build on unstable ground, it eventually cracks. The pressure, the expectations, the comparison, it all becomes too much. When you know your why, pressure doesn't break you, it sharpens you. Because your reason for showing up is no longer tied to external applause, it's internal. And that makes you unstoppable. Let me tell you a story. There was a young violinist, not particularly exceptional in skill, but obsessed with the idea of moving people through music. She would play in subways, in empty rooms for audiences of one, not for money, not for fame, but because she believed music could heal. She wasn't trying to impress anyone, she was trying to reach someone. Years later, when she stood on the stage of a world-renowned concert hall, people called her an overnight success. But they missed the point. She didn't become the best because she practiced more. She became the best because every note she played carried intention. It meant something to her. And when it means something to you, it will mean something to others too. Purpose connects us. It humanizes us. And when you operate from purpose, people feel it. They may not be able to explain it, but they can sense it. That's the difference between someone who's good and someone who's unforgettable. Now, some people might say, I don't know my purpose. That's okay. It's not something you find on a mountaintop or in a book. It's something you uncover layer by layer by paying attention to what moves you. What breaks your heart? What fires you up? What's the thing you'd still do if no one was watching? That's where your why begins. It's not always glamorous. Sometimes your purpose is born out of pain, out of frustration, out of the desire to fix something that never should have been broken in the first place. And that's powerful, because when your work comes from something personal, it carries weight. It carries truth. You see, the world doesn't need more people trying to be impressive. It needs more people willing to be intentional, to build from the inside out, to stand for something real. So if you want to be the best at anything, start there. Don't chase the goal, chase the reason behind the goal. Ask yourself, why does this matter to me? And then ask it again and again until you get to something that feels almost too honest to admit out loud. That's when you'll know you've hit something real. And once you have it, protect it, nurture it. Because there will be distractions. There will be people who try to talk you out of it. There will be moments when you wonder if you're crazy for holding on to something so intangible. But those are the moments that matter most. That's when the best are made, not in the spotlight, but in the silence. The truth is, anyone can be good when things are easy. But becoming the best requires a kind of stubborn clarity, a kind of inner fire that doesn't dim when the lights go out. And that only comes from knowing why you started in the first place. Purpose won't make you perfect, but it will make you persistent. And in a world that moves fast and forgets even faster, the ones who last aren't always the loudest or the flashiest. They're the ones who never lost sight of their why. So ask yourself, why are you here? Why does this matter to you? Why are you willing to struggle for it? Because when you start with your why, you've already taken the first and most important step toward becoming the best at anything. There's a story we've all been told, whether directly or subtly, that if you want to be the best at something, you have to go all in. You have to push hard, burn the candle at both ends, sacrifice sleep, relationships, balance, whatever it takes. The louder, more aggressive the effort, the better. But the truth is that story is flawed, because becoming the best isn't about short-term intensity. It's about long-term consistency. Intensity is attractive. It's dramatic. It gives the illusion of progress. It feels good because it looks like you're doing everything right. Late nights, sweat hustle. It makes you feel alive. But that kind of effort burns out quickly. It's like sprinting in the first mile of a marathon. You might impress a few people early on, but you won't last. And the ones who last are the ones who win. Consistency, on the other hand, is quiet. It's not glamorous. It's not something you can post about on social media and get a flood of likes. It's showing up day after day, especially on the days you don't feel like it. It's making one more call, doing one more rep, reading one more page. It's progress you can't see in the moment but feel over time. We've glorified the grind so much that we forget greatness is built slowly. Not in loud breakthroughs, but in silent repetitions. Not in grand moments of effort, but in thousands of small, deliberate actions. Becoming the best means showing up on Monday and showing up on Thursday. It means doing the same thing again and again until you can't get it wrong. There's an old saying that amateurs practice until they get it right. Professionals practice until they can't get it wrong. That's consistency. That's mastery. And it only happens when you trade the desire to be impressive for the discipline to be persistent. But let's be honest, consistency is hard. It's hard because it's boring. It's hard because it doesn't give you instant results. It demands patience in a world that worships speed. It asks you to keep going when no one's watching, when no one's clapping, when it feels like nothing is changing. And yet, this is where greatness is formed. Not in the spotlight, but in the shadows. We love to talk about motivation. We chase it, we wait for it, we hope it shows up. But motivation is a feeling, and feelings are unreliable. You can't build a future on how you feel in the moment. You build it on what you decide to do, regardless of how you feel. That's what consistency teaches you. It teaches you to act out of commitment, not convenience. And that commitment, when repeated over time, builds confidence. Not the fake kind of confidence that comes from pretending you're better than you are, but real confidence. The kind that's earned through discipline and repetition. The kind that comes from knowing deep down, I've done the work. Imagine a bricklayer building a wall. Every day they lay a brick, just one. It's not impressive. No one stops to take pictures. But day after day, brick by brick, a wall begins to rise. That's what consistency is. You might not notice it for weeks or even months, but over time, your effort compounds. And eventually, people will look at what you've built and say, wow, how did you do that? And your answer will be simple. I laid a brick every day. We live in a culture obsessed with big wins, viral moments, rapid transformation. But real growth doesn't happen in bursts, it happens in rhythm. The best athletes, the best leaders, the best artists, they don't rely on streaks of brilliance. They rely on structure. They build habits. They create routines that protect their progress from the ups and downs of emotion. That's the other gift of consistency. It stabilizes you. It grounds you when the world gets chaotic, and it always does. Your routines keep you anchored. They become your foundation. You don't have to think, should I show up today? Because it's already decided. You've made it part of who you are, not just what you do. There's a common myth that discipline kills creativity. But the opposite is true. Discipline creates space for creativity. When your habits are strong, when your routine is solid, your mind is free to explore, to create, to innovate. Consistency doesn't limit you. It liberates you. It allows you to perform at your best because the basics are already taken care of. But you have to trust the process. And that's hard, especially when results are slow. There will be times when you question whether your effort is worth it, when you wonder if anyone even notices. But here's what you need to remember. The results are never immediate, but they are inevitable. If you stay consistent, growth will come. Success will come. Excellence will come. It's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when. There's power in momentum. Once you get into motion, it gets easier to stay in motion. But you have to start, and then you have to keep going, even when it's uncomfortable, even when you're tired, especially then, because that's when the average stop and the best keep going. There's a Japanese concept called kaizen. Continuous improvement. It's the idea that greatness isn't found in quantum leaps, but in tiny upgrades. 1% better each day, one small improvement over and over again. It doesn't sound like much, but over time it becomes unstoppable. That's what consistency looks like. Not perfection, but progress. So ask yourself, what can you commit to daily? Not what can you do when you feel inspired, but what will you do when you feel nothing? Can you build a routine that supports your goal even when life gets messy? Can you keep the promise you made to yourself, not just for a week, but for a year? Because the difference between those who dream of being the best and those who become the best is simple. The best do the work. Every day. They don't wait for the perfect moment. They create it. They don't rely on luck. They rely on consistency. You don't need to be extraordinary to be consistent. But consistency over time will make you extraordinary. One of the most underrated qualities of people who become the best at what they do is this: they're coachable. They don't just tolerate feedback. They seek it. They invite criticism, not because they enjoy being told they're wrong, but because they understand that growth doesn't happen in isolation. It happens in community. It happens through honest, sometimes uncomfortable conversations that stretch us, challenge us, and most importantly, wake us up. There's a tendency in our culture to glorify the self-made individual, the myth of the lone genius, the person who figured it all out on their own. But when you look closer, you'll realize that no one becomes great alone. The best are surrounded by people who hold them accountable, who see their blind spots, who care enough to tell them the truth. That's what being coachable is all about. It's about humility. It's about being open. It's about choosing growth over ego. Ego is the enemy of excellence. It tells you that you've arrived, that you're good enough, that you don't need help. But ego doesn't care about your future. It only cares about your pride. And pride never built anything worth remembering. People who are truly committed to becoming the best know that they don't have all the answers. In fact, they get excited when they realize there's something they don't know, because that means there's room to get better. They don't view feedback as an attack. They see it as a tool, a gift. And it is, because it reveals what you can't see on your own. It opens your eyes to behaviors, habits, attitudes that may be holding you back without you even realizing it. But here's the thing about feedback. It's rarely comfortable. It pokes at our insecurities. It touches places we'd rather leave hidden. That's why most people avoid it. They surround themselves with people who say what they want to hear, not what they need to hear. They build echo chambers instead of accountability circles. And then they wonder why they're stuck. Growth requires friction. Not the kind that breaks you down, but the kind that polishes you. Think of it like refining a diamond. The rough edges are smoothed away through pressure, through rubbing, through repeated contact with something stronger. The same is true for us. We need people in our lives who challenge us, who don't let us settle, who aren't afraid to call us out, not to hurt us, but to help us. Being coachable doesn't mean you accept every piece of feedback. It means you listen with curiosity instead of defensiveness. You ask yourself, is there truth here? What can I learn from this? And even if the delivery is imperfect, even if it stings, you still extract the lesson. Because the goal isn't to feel good. The goal is to get better. It takes courage to be coachable. It means admitting that you have more to learn, that you're a work in progress. And that's not weakness, it's wisdom. The moment you think you've arrived is the moment you stop growing. The best never stop learning. They read, they ask questions, they study people who are better than them, not to compare, but to understand. Because they know that every conversation, every experience, every moment carries the potential to teach them something new. The opposite of being coachable is being defensive. And defensiveness is a mask we wear to protect our ego. When someone offers feedback and we immediately explain, justify, or deflect, we rob ourselves of an opportunity. We turn a mirror into a wall. And without mirrors, we can't see what needs changing. Some of the most transformative moments in your life will come from uncomfortable truths. A teacher telling you you're not pushing hard enough. A mentor pointing out the subtle ways you sabotage yourself. A friend calling out the gap between your words and your actions. Those moments can feel harsh in real time, but in hindsight, they become turning points. Because someone cared enough to be honest with you. The best athletes have coaches. The best leaders have advisors. The best musicians have mentors. Not because they're weak, but because they understand that excellence is a team effort. That it takes outside perspective to sharpen inside potential. And let's be clear, being coachable is not about obedience. It's not about blindly following orders, it's about discernment. It's about filtering feedback through your values, your mission, your purpose. You don't accept every suggestion, but you consider it, you weigh it, you give it space. That openness, that willingness to be shaped is what sets the best apart. There's something deeply attractive about a person who's always learning, someone who doesn't posture or pretend, but who listens with intention. Someone who isn't afraid to say, I don't know, or teach me. That kind of humility creates connection. It builds trust. It invites collaboration. Because people don't want to follow someone who's perfect. They want to follow someone who's real, who's growing, who's human. When you're coachable, you grow faster. You skip years of mistakes. You gain access to insights that would take you decades to figure out on your own. You collapse time. And more than that, you become someone others want to invest in. Because people pour into those who are open, who are eager, who are teachable. So if you want to become the best at anything, don't just sharpen your skills, sharpen your mindset. Let go of the need to always be right. Replace it with the desire to always get better. Learn to love correction, not because it feels good, because it leads somewhere good. Ask for feedback regularly from your peers, from your mentors, from the people who experience your leadership, your work, your presence. Don't just say, "How am I doing?" Say, "What could I be doing better?" And when they answer, listen. Don't argue. Don't explain. Just listen. Reflect. The people who become the best are not the ones who are the most naturally talented. They're the ones who are willing to learn from everyone, who stay curious, who ask for input, who seek refinement. They understand that being coachable isn't a one-time decision. It's a lifelong posture. You don't have to be the smartest person in the room. You just have to be the one most willing to grow. If you study the lives of people who have become the best in their field, those who have mastered their craft, changed their industry, or left a legacy, you'll find something surprising. Yes, they worked hard. Yes, they had vision and grit. But more than anything, they developed the ability to fall in love with the boring. Most people want the spotlight. They want the applause, the achievement, the attention. They want the moment when all the effort finally pays off and the world notices. But what they don't want are the invisible hours, the routine, the repetition, the monotony, and that's where the real work happens. That's where mastery lies. The problem is that we've built a culture that's addicted to excitement. We chase novelty. We're constantly looking for the next new thing, the next rush, the next hack. But here's the truth. If you always need excitement to stay committed, you'll never last, because the path to greatness is repetitive. It's unsexy. It's not full of fireworks. It's full of habits. And most days, those habits are boring. But boring is not bad. Boring is necessary. Boring is the weight room when no one's watching. It's the early morning practice that doesn't make the highlight reel. It's the late night editing session after everyone else has gone to bed. It's doing the same drill, the same exercise, the same routine, not until you get it right, but until it becomes who you are. That's the shift. At first, repetition feels like a chore. But over time, it becomes your identity. You're no longer doing the work just to get better. You're doing the work because that's who you are. A writer writes, a leader leads, a builder builds. Not occasionally, not when inspired, but every day, even when it's boring. Especially then, the people who fall in love with boring are the ones who eventually create brilliance. Because they understand that brilliance is built, not found. It's not a flash of genius. It's not a lucky break. It's the result of thousands of micro decisions to keep showing up, to keep refining, to keep getting 1% better. And let's be honest, repetition isn't just boring, it's humbling. It forces you to admit that you haven't arrived, that you're still learning, that no matter how good you get, there's still room to improve. And that's exactly why most people avoid it. Because it feels slow, it feels inefficient. But mastery doesn't care about your feelings. It only responds to your discipline. There's something deeply countercultural about choosing repetition over stimulation, about choosing consistency over chaos. But the most successful people aren't those who chase what feels good in the moment. They're the ones who stay committed to what matters most, even when it doesn't feel exciting. When you fall in love with boring, you learn patience. You learn how to sit with discomfort. You learn how to stay focused when the initial excitement wears off. And that is a superpower, because that's exactly where most people quit. They don't quit when it's hard. They quit when it's dull. When the work loses its shine and becomes routine, that's the point where most tap out. And that's exactly the point where you need to lean in. There's an old saying that discipline is doing what needs to be done, even when you don't feel like doing it. But I think it goes deeper than that. Discipline is learning to value the process more than the result. It's learning to find meaning in the motion. It's realizing that the practice is the point, not just a means to an end. Because the truth is the result isn't in your control. You can't guarantee the outcome, but you can control your input. You can control your habits. You can control whether or not you show up today and tomorrow and the day after that. That's where your power is. That's where your progress lies. If you want to become the best at anything, you have to develop the muscle of repetition, the ability to do the work when no one's cheering, the willingness to embrace the mundane, not as an obstacle, but as the path, because the boring stuff, the stuff no one sees, is the stuff that builds champions. Think of an Olympic swimmer. The moment we see them win gold is breathtaking. It's dramatic. But what we don't see are the 40-30 a.m. wake-ups, the hundreds of thousands of laps, the pain, the monotony, the early morning spent alone in silence, staring at the same black line at the bottom of the pool. That's where the medal is won, not on the podium, but in the practice, in the boring. Great performers don't chase highs, they build rituals. They remove decision fatigue by committing to routine. It's not about willpower, it's about structure. They don't wake up and ask, do I feel like working today? They've already decided. They've built systems that support their vision. And that system includes boredom. It welcomes it. Because it knows that boredom isn't the enemy. It's the doorway to excellence. The danger is that boredom often gets misinterpreted as failure. We think, if I'm not excited, I must be on the wrong path. But boredom doesn't mean you're doing it wrong. It means you're doing it right. You're going deep. You're staying the course. You're doing the work that separates dabblers from masters. You don't need to feel amazing every day to make progress. You just need to stay in motion. You need to trust that your small, boring actions are leading somewhere meaningful, because they are. And one day you'll wake up and realize that the boring work you once resisted has become your competitive advantage. While others were distracted, you were building. While others were chasing excitement, you were crafting excellence. And now people will look at what you've built and call it talent. But you'll know the truth, it wasn't talent. It was your ability to love the boring. So if you're doing the work and it feels repetitive, keep going. If it feels quiet, keep going. If it feels like no one notices, keep going. Because the difference between those who are good and those who are great is this: the great ones learn to love the boring stuff. And that love is what made them the best. One of the most misunderstood ideas about success is that it's a solo journey. That the people who become the best are the ones who shut out the world, climb the mountain alone, and stand at the top with a flag in hand and no one by their side. But that picture is a myth. Because the truth is, the people who rise the highest are often the ones who lift others as they climb. Greatness is not measured by how far ahead you are of everyone else. It's measured by how many people you bring with you. The people who become the best at anything do not hoard knowledge, insight, or opportunity. They share it, they teach it, they model it. Because they understand something that most people miss: success is most meaningful when it's shared. When you look at the most inspiring leaders, creators, athletes, or entrepreneurs, there's a common thread: they care deeply about others. They don't see success as something to protect. They see it as something to multiply. They don't just strive for excellence in themselves, they help others rise to their potential. And that's what makes their impact last. There's something powerful about choosing to be generous with your growth. To not just focus on what you can achieve, but on what you can give. To recognize that your progress isn't just about you. It's about everyone who is affected by your presence, your leadership, your influence. Becoming the best means realizing that your example becomes someone else's permission. We all have people who helped us get to where we are. Someone who believed in us, challenged us, encouraged us, opened a door when we couldn't even find the hallway. And often, they didn't do it in dramatic ways. Maybe they asked the right question at the right moment. Maybe they saw something in us that we didn't see in ourselves. Maybe they just stayed by our side when we were ready to give up. That's what lifting others looks like. It's intentional, but it's not always loud. You never know the impact of your words or your example. What feels like a small gesture to you could be a defining moment for someone else. That's the beauty of leadership. It multiplies. When you commit to helping others rise, you create a ripple effect that reaches further than you'll ever see. And here's the paradox: the more you lift others, the stronger you become. Because something shifts in you when you stop seeing people as competition and start seeing them as collaborators. When you stop guarding your knowledge and start mentoring others. When you stop trying to win alone and start building a team that wins together. It changes everything. You begin to grow in new ways. You become more aware, more grounded, more human. It takes confidence to lift others. Because insecure people hoard, they protect, they isolate. But secure people share, they encourage, they invite. They don't see someone else's success as a threat. They see it as a win for everyone. And that's what the best understand. They know that rising alone isn't nearly as fulfilling as rising together. There's a reason the best teams outperform the best individuals. It's because the power of we is always greater than the power of my. When you build others up, you create loyalty. You build trust. You inspire commitment. And that doesn't just make you better. It makes everyone around you better. And in the long run, that's what sustains greatness. Lifting others doesn't mean you sacrifice your standards. It doesn't mean you lower the bar. In fact, it often means you raise it. Because when people know you believe in them, they rise to meet the expectation. They grow into the space you create for them. People don't grow when they're criticized. They grow when they're believed in. You don't have to be in a formal leadership position to lead like this. You just have to choose to care. You have to choose to see others, to celebrate progress, to offer encouragement, to speak life into people who are still trying to find their footing. That kind of leadership doesn't require a title. It requires heart. It also requires vulnerability. Because lifting others means admitting that you don't have all the answers. It means being open about your journey, your struggles, your lessons. And that kind of honesty creates safety. It creates connection. It says, I've been there too. And if I made it through, so can you. Well, one of the most powerful things you can do is share what you've learned. Not in a way that makes you look impressive, but in a way that makes someone else feel possible. Success should not intimidate, it should inspire. And that happens when people see not just your victories, but your journey, when they realize you weren't always where you are now, that you had doubts, setbacks, failures. And you kept going. That's the story people need, not the highlight reel, the human story. The story of resilience, of community, of generosity. Because at the end of the day, we don't remember people for how perfect they were. We remember them for how they made us feel, for how they treated us, for how they helped us believe a little more in ourselves. And here's what happens when you live like this. People start to show up differently around you. They feel safe. They feel seen. They feel valued. And that kind of environment doesn't just create success, it creates significance. It creates culture. It builds legacies that last far beyond any individual achievement. So the next time you make progress, don't just ask, how far did I go? Ask, who did I bring with me? When you learn something new, don't just keep it to yourself. Share it. Teach it. Model it. When you find your voice, use it to give others permission to find theirs. Because real greatness is not about being the best in the room. It's about making the room better because you're in it. The people who change the world aren't just the ones who accomplish a lot. They're the ones who elevate others along the way. They understand that becoming the best isn't just about what you achieve. It's about how many people you empower. It's about creating a ripple of excellence that outlives you. So if you want to become the best at anything, remember this: don't climb the mountain alone. Bring others with you. Teach them what you've learned. Celebrate their wins as much as your own. Because in the end, the true measure of success is not how high you climb. It's how many people rise because of you.